Assalamu alaikum, friends. Today we're going to talk about unusual conversation about Prophet Muhammad. And this is not the conversation you hear in the mosques, in the schools, and in the lectures. This is very unusual conversation. This is a Prophet Muhammad's legacy is so huge that it takes a lot of time to explore and understand. And you got Ibrahim Sayed has joined. It takes a lot of time to understand. Today, we are going to start with a few things. Samira, you can share after 7 or 8 minutes, and then I'll come back. Dr. Ibrahim Sayed may want to share some as well. Let me go through this. If it is not common sense, then it is not Islam. You'll learn new dimensions that you may have never heard before about Prophet Muhammad's work. This month is about him and his mission in celebrating his 1451st birthday. He was born in 571 AD. The announcement will be on the homepage at worldmuslimcongress.org. May God shower peace and mercy on Prophet Muhammad. He brought a new dimension to creating cohesive societies, to create peace in the world. It was not for him, it was not for any specific religion, but it is for humanity. Is Prophet Muhammad, one of the questions we had last week was, is Prophet Muhammad divine? In his own words, from what I know, I'm like every human being. This is what he said in effect. I'm like every human being. I will be dead and buried like you all. Bury me in an unmarked grave. Let me add my understanding to that statement. He was not immortal, nor divine, and he did not want people to consider worshiping him. His message was divine. God's words were divine, but not him. He was a mortal being. And this is one aspect of Islam, the abstract part of Islam, that is appealed to me quite a lot, because it is about just one creator, one person to believe in, one person to be, not person, one entity to be accountable to. He did not want anyone even to draw his pictures for the same reason. Let not somebody start worshiping him and hanging his pictures on the walls or having his busts every place. If you look at Saddam Hussein and many of the world leaders around, they want their statue bust in this street, in the square, main square, and their pictures hung in every office. But that takes attention away from the message. Prophet was about message. The message he gave was for creating better societies. We're going to focus on that. Imagine, how do I connect with Prophet Muhammad? Some of it I'm going to repeat from last week. I don't wear clothes like Prophet Muhammad. I don't have beard like his. Nor do I eat like him. Nor do I live like him, sleep like him. But when it comes to respecting fellow human beings, nurturing goodwill, mitigating conflicts, and standing up for others, forgiving others, treating others as equals, I can relate with him. That's who I follow, not his beard, not what he said, few things, but his character. That's what I follow. If I don't follow this, I'm really not following him. I'm sure you agree with those statements. First, let me warn you. It's a big warning. The biography written by Ibn Hisham, is full of flaws. Don't go by that. He does not project Prophet as mercy to mankind. Somehow, many Muslim scholars in the past have presented Prophet as a triumphalist, a victor, Prophet was not that. Prophet was about humility and building better societies. He was an exemplary citizen, an epitome of kindness. Whereas Hisham has presented him, I don't want to go there, but you read some of the Hishams. Let me share one item. About 7 or 8 years ago, when Abu Bakr Baghdadi started harassing, raping women, Yazidi women, Christian women, and Shia women. And he said, "There are my bounty." And he cited Ibn Hisham. As Prophet did it, I went and looked at the book, Ibn Hisham. It was there. And I threw the book away because that was a wrong book. Prophet cannot be presented in less than mercy. He was a merciful. And that's what the Quran says. He was a mercy to mankind. And there was no way Ibn Hisham understood the Prophet, although he wrote the biography. And I would suggest reading the biography written by Karen Armstrong, which is much better. You can relate with the Prophet there. Let's unpack a few stories. Prophet believed in equality of mankind. In his last speech in Mecca, he said all mankind is from Adam and Eve. No one is superior to each other. 1200 years later, Thomas Jefferson said the same thing. In fact, he incorporated in the immortal Declaration of Independence. The Prophet laid out a path for life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Life is a gift from God and must be lived to the full. And he said, you don't need to be a mendicant, a saint, a fakir, walking around with nothing. But all the same, don't need to live a luxurious life. You can find a middle path. That's what his teaching was. And that's a way to liberty and pursuit of happiness. Again, the happiness comes from the guidance encapsulated in nearly 20 verses in the Quran. And one of them is 262, which you are all familiar. Surely those who believe, who are Jewish, Christians, and the converts, anyone who believes in one God simply meaning accountable to somebody for your actions, believe in the last day, but there is an accountability for everybody's action. Sometime or the other, they have to pay for it. They cannot go scot-free for the wrongdoing. And leads a righteous life. And righteous life is defined as caring for fellow beings, standing up for others, and doing justice, being merciful to mankind. These are the pathways laid out by the Prophet to lead a righteous life. And when we talk about submission to Allah, we are not submitting in a traditional way. What we are submitting, we're subscribing to the ideals He has prescribed to us to live a peaceful life. Now, friends, I'll go to Dr. Samira, and she is in France. Thanks for joining, Samira. And she's a historian, Muslim historian, and she has done a lot of research. And she's going to share for about 7 or 8 minutes about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the extraordinary things that are never taught any place. Her take, it could be her take. And after that, Ibrahim Sayed will share a few thoughts. Samira, assalamu alaikum, please go ahead.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Brother Mike, thank you for asking me to share my point of view regarding our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. First thing is that, as I told you, I have made researches about the urban Muslim presence in America before Christopher Columbus. And I was so happy because I was looking for a prophet on the American continent, because I just couldn't accept or couldn't believe that no prophet had been sent to the to the natives of America. And I was so happy, so shocked, and so surprised to see that the natives of America had written the name of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam on petroglyph in Nevada. And it was discovered during the 1970s by Dr. Barifel from the University of Harvard. and he highlighted the fact that it was written Muhammad Nabiullah, Muhammad the Prophet of Allah, and it was written in Arabic, in Kufic Arabic, and it was also discovered in California that the name of Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, peace be upon him, was discovered by professors from the University of California. And I think it's and they said that it had to be the Arabs and the Muslims, because only the Muslims could have written Jesus, son of Mary, because the Christians would have named him differently. So I believe that the two last messengers sent to mankind had to be known, because they are an example for humankind, whether Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam or Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, just like all the other prophets and messengers, of course. But Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam is the seal of the messengers. He is the last one. He was sent to the universes, those from to the alam of mankind, as well as to the jinn. So yeah, the fact that he had been sent with all his great qualities, he just couldn't be sent but to everybody on earth and everybody in the universe at a certain level, because people I mean, a man like him cannot be found or followed by any person. You see, for example, today in 2021, more than 1 billion and almost 2 billion people love him, in spite of having never met with him. And this love and this is something that people who are not Muslims cannot really understand, because it's something that we have from the very beginning. When we come to life, we come with this love for Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And he was a great example for humankind. And unfortunately, today, many people pretend to be Muslims, but they do not follow his example as a man, as a humankind, as a Muslim. We love him. We always say alayhi salatu wasalam, but we don't put into practice what he taught us. And this is
share some
it's a
examples,
shame.
Samira, share some examples which are not normally told, or an example where Muslims are told only a part of the story, not the whole story.
Yes, for example, when you speak to people and you just when you speak to people who are supposed to have a certain knowledge of Islam, well, whether a common Muslim or someone with a higher level of knowledge, you would say that they are just reciting verses of Al-Quran, or they are just repeating what they had heard. But in fact, in their daily lives, they do not respect the others. They do not, they believe that they are better than anyone else. For example, very often I found myself talking to people who believed that as Muslims that they had more rights to be blessed by Allah than non-Muslims. As Muslims, they believe that you cannot have the right to say upon someone who died as a Christian or as a Jew or as any from any other religion, you cannot say rahmatullahi alayh. You cannot ask for the mercy of Allah on someone who is not known as being a Muslim. And this is something that has always astonished me and that I disagreed with, because many persons who are not known as being Muslims the way we believe them to be are represent Islam in its best qualities, and more than those who pretend to be praying five times a day and do not, as soon as their prayers are over, they turn in order to aggress other people. And I must say that the fact that I live in a non-Muslim country, and that I have been used to work and to be in touch with people who are not necessarily from the Arab and Muslim civilization has taught me a lot. And I sometimes I see in their behaviors an Islamic teaching.
Thank you
And
so much.
it's very important.
It is. Thank you very much. Last week we talked about how Prophet, it was not the regular Hudaybiyah peace treaty. We went further beyond what it entails. And then also placing of Aswad, we went beyond where the Prophet's conflict mitigation and goodwill nurturance was in action. Then we talked about the Taif story where and non-violently he treated the people who harmed him by praying for him. And this week I'm going to talk about Bilal and other issues after Ibrahim Sayyid Sahab speaks. Please share unusual descriptions that normal Muslims have not talked about, or the masajids have never talked about. Go beyond the regular story.
So it's open to Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What I admire about our Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is what is called egalitarianism. The word egal is a French word which means equal. So he went to Medina. He established a Medina Charter. So in that one, he established equal rights and responsibilities for all, Muslims, non-Muslims. And also he was a feminist. Feminist means, again, he gave equal rights and responsibility to ladies. So in Islam, Muslims have the right to education, the right to hold a job, their earnings, they can use it for themselves, and the husband has no right to get a share of that earning. And also they can work, earn, and they can also hold political leadership, and also they can participate in battles. So he gave a lot of rights. So that's why I call him a feminist.
Ibrahim Sahab, just 1 second, just to add to that, Prophet Muhammad did not give the rights to women. He restored their God-given rights.
Okay. Another thing is that when he established egalitarianism, there was no bloodshed. So it was peaceful. In 1690, there was a British philosopher, John Locke, L-O-C-K-E. He wrote on egalitarianism. And based on that philosophy, there were revolutions. First, the American Revolution, and we got the independence here in 1776. 13 years later, there was a French Revolution, and both there was violence. And there was again, there were writings of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Based on that, there was a French Revolution in 1914. And recently, we had Iranian Revolution in 1979. So all that was a bloodshed. So the beauty of Prophet is that he established the egalitarian society without any bloodshed. Also, there was some opposition. Opposition came from people who are well off economically, because this equal rights is equal rights in the spheres of social rights, economic rights, political rights, civil rights. So people who are well off, they didn't want to give their share of their wealth in the form of zakat. So they were opposing zakat also. So they were not happy with this egalitarian society. And also some people had caste system there. And for example, Qurayshi were in the top class, They did not want to, be equal to or stand in line in Salat with the other low caste people. So they were not happy. So there was a caste system, their aristocratic system, caste system. And so the Prophet ﷺ abolished all these things. That is the credit he gets in Islam. And
Exactly.
that peaceful revolution also attracted people to Islam. I would say my ancestors converted to Islam because of these rights. These rights, I come from India, and India has 4 caste systems, and even today, people of the lower caste are punished violently, and a lot of discrimination and all that. So this is a great attraction. Islam does not spread by sport, but by its attraction of this
Egalitarian. Yeah.
egalitarian rights. That's very, very important. That's very important, because if today the president of America is a Muslim, he will stand with a janitor next to him. So we cannot.
And that's the American way anyway.
So that's what it reminds me that American Constitution is very compatible with Islam.
Indeed, indeed.
And also our president, Thomas Jefferson, he has said about this.
Yes.
And the copy of the Quran, which is still there in the National Library of Congress, and he wrote his own Bible, which is very close to Quran. You see,
I haven't checked that one, but I have seen the Quran in the Library of Congress. I've gone and opened the book, and it was nice to see that.
No, he has written a Bible.
I need to see that.
It is very close, and he bought a copy of the Quran, I think translated by Sells, S-E-L-L-E-S.
Yes, George Sales.
George Sales. So there are a lot of articles nowadays about the concept of America and Islam.
Yes.
And also our Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is believed he is in the Supreme Court. I think his statue is there, writings are there.
That statue, it's a carving, a small carving among the people who give justice to the world, the lawgivers.
So he also his I think one of the Quranic verses are quoted in the Harvard Library.
Exactly. Well, we're not talking about Islam, we're talking about Prophet here. So
anyway, the Prophet is admired throughout the world by great people.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Ibrahim Sahib.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. Let me share, as Samira was telling the story about saying peace to everyone, I have a very interesting story. I had a radio show way back in 2003 and 4, I believe. And there was 1 week in April, I believe, in 2003, if I'm not mistaken. On that particular week, Buddha's birthday and Prophet Muhammad's birthday fell in the same week. And on my radio show, I said, peace to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and peace to Buddha. And I didn't realize what happened after that. A gentleman by name Qasim Rashid, he hated my guts to see Islam spoken in the most contemporary way, how Islam applies to me today. And he didn't like it. He was a traditionalist, and I have respect for that. That's okay with me. But he didn't like what I was saying. So he recorded that conversation, peace to Buddha. And he calls me one day and say, Mike, me and 3 of the other people want to come and see you. And I said, what about? He said, we have a fatwa against you. I said, well, sure, come and see me. So we all met together in a cafe, and I think it was Starbucks or something like that. And he said, Qasim said, you cannot say peace be upon Buddha. That is wrong. There is no tradition like that. And I said, do you know if Prophet Muhammad was alive? I asked him, do you believe Prophet was a rahmat, mercy to mankind? He said, yes. Wouldn't he say that to Buddha if he was alive today? He said, no, he wouldn't say. He said, then you don't believe Prophet was a mercy to mankind. Then he said, you need to go apologize on the radio that you were wrong about saying peace to Buddha. And if not, we will give you this fatwa. And that fatwa annulled my marriage to my late wife, Najma. And I said to him, no, I'm not going to apologize. I'm going to say peace to Buddha, peace to Krishna, peace to Mahavir, peace to everyone. That's who Prophet was. He was a peace, mercy to mankind, and we have to emulate him. And then the guy said, okay, then we're going to issue the fatwa. So then I used the Clint Eastwood line. I said, Qasim, go ahead and make my day. And that was the end of it. He didn't make my day. He didn't issue the fatwa. He backed out. I think people try to frighten you. If you're afraid of the fatwas, they throw it at you, those bombs. But if you stand firmly against it, they back off. And that's what happened to Qasim Rashid. So now I'm going to talk about Bilal. Prophet Muhammad, there are a lot of questions about it. Brother Safi Kaskas and are going to do a special show on slavery in Islam. It is not there. And we are going to do a studio. We're waiting for a studio to complete. Studio with about 25 to 30 people in audience representing different faiths and different traditions of Muslims. And so we are open to questions and answers at that time. And let me share a little bit about what Bilal is about. Prophet Muhammad not only freed the slaves, but he gave a superior place. He announced that Bilal has a superior place in paradise. And this was to remove the racial barriers. This is to reaffirm the message he gave in his last sermon that nobody is above the other and nobody is superior to the other. Nobody is more privileged than the other. And there is no room for prejudice in Islam. It is prejudice that destroys the social fabric of society. However, like all faiths, some Muslims are guilty as well in not following the guidance to the fullest extent. When Prophet Muhammad assigned Bilal to call on the azan, he was the first person to call on the adhan, that is the call to the prayer. And at that time, all the rich people in Medina thought it was a privilege to call for the adhan, and everybody was saying, I want to go. I want to say the prayer. I want to say the prayer. Why are you giving that to that man? Meaning Black African. And Prophet Muhammad insisted that he is, in God's eyes, he is going to earn paradise. And he insisted that he go and say the adhan. And that was to insist racial equality. That is a very powerful statement. And not only that, there is another aspect to that. Hazrat Bilal had an accent. He couldn't pronounce the Arabic words correctly, as many of us, except Samira and the people from the Middle East, whose mother tongue is Arabic. All others in the world, unless they are studied Arabic, we don't have the right pronunciation in Arabic, and that is okay. So when Hazrat Bilal pronounced some Arabic words faultily, some people wanted to laugh. Prophet Muhammad stopped them. That is his accent. Let's learn to accept that. We don't insist on, it is difficult for him to say certain words that you can say. And that's when the plurality of accents, plurality of differences was highlighted again, once again by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He was an ultimate citizen and he was an ultimate pluralist. So I'm opening the floor back to Ibrahim Saab and Samira. Well, let me also share some. Now I'm going to talk about this next week. The first person on the earth to start the interfaith dialogue was Prophet Muhammad. I'm going to share about that. And the civil dialogue It's one of the 20 values of Islam that he taught, how to have a conversation with fellow human beings who are different than you. Then humility, that is the key to understand religion. If you're not humble, if there is no humility in you, you have not understood your own religion. So let me open the floor to all of my friends here in the conversation we are carrying out. Samira, you want to share a few things? Questions? We can ask either questions.
Okay, well, if you want. I'm working on a book that's about to be published about the Algerian Regency and the foundation of the U.S. Navy, because it's related.
Yes.
And I have made many researches regarding slavery in North Africa, and especially in Algiers, and the way the Algerians used to treat the slaves, because they, in fact, when they captured ships, European ships or American ships, they used to enslave the crew. And so I have discovered many testimonies, most of them, especially when it came from Spanish historians, used to say very ugly things about the Algerians, and they falsified the truth. And they pretended that the Algerians really ill-treated the slaves in North Africa. And unfortunately now today, there are more and more historians who are trying to give an objective point of view regarding this subject. But the great thing is that I discovered among very ancient texts that, in fact, what the Spanish used to say regarding the way the Algerians treated slaves was completely untrue, and that not only were the slaves very well treated, but they nourished them the way they should have been nourished, and they had 2 days during which they could relax, and they gave them clothes. They gave them presents, and they had a part of the presents that were given by European nations. And moreover, they had their own chapels in the jail houses that they had. Well, because they were allowed to go out of the jail during the day, to go and work, to even have restaurants, to even have any kind of trades, and then come back to the jail at night.
That's nice.
In fact, yes, it was really, it was amazing. I would never have thought that it was, it was possible. And they highlighted that, in fact, the Algerians and the Turks who were present in Algeria really treated very well the slaves. And it's written by a French historian, and it was also highlighted by I think it was an English or an American also writer, researcher. This gives another point of view, that it's not Islamic, that it's not Arab, but that gives the truth about the sacredness of history and the sacredness of the way we should teach history, and not falsify it or make any bad testimony or wrong testimony about the truth.
Fully
and that's great.
Fully agree. Friends, if I don't wear like Prophet Muhammad, I don't eat like him, I don't do anything like he did, but I can relate with him. If I don't stand up for others people's rights, then I'm not following the Prophet. If I don't stand up for the justice of fellow human beings, I'm not following the Prophet, or neither following Islam. If I don't help somebody who is hungry, thirsty, I'm not following the Prophet. I'm not following Islam. Brother Nur Amin, he is the Imam of, he's an Indonesian Imam of a masjid in Washington, D.C. He is here. Brother Nur Amin, I want you to share a few words about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that is not shared in the mosques, not shared traditionally, but you go beyond the speech. You missed the program, much of the program last week and today, but I would request you to share your thoughts. Brother Nur Amin, unmute, please. Oops, he's gone. All right. Back to each one of us now. This is speaker view. There's Zafar, and Brother Zafar is online. He posted, since you mentioned Algeria, I'm going to go off topic just for 1 second. When you mentioned Algiers, I'm talking about Morocco. Was the first country in the world besides Mysore state recognizing the independence of America. Then the first, since you mentioned naval ship, Samira, the first naval ship of United States of America was named Hyder Ali. Brother Iqbal had posted some note about it yesterday. You want to share about it, Zafar Bhai? You have to unmute. Okay, he is not. Hyder Ali is the king of the state of Mysore within the greater part of India. And the first naval ship was named after him in the United States, and it won the battle against the British. So just wanted to get off the track. We got a few more conversation we can go. Ibrahim Sayed Saab and Samira, if you thought of something else that came to your mind, please share it.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, if you got some other thought as we were talking about, share it. Let me share one that just came to my mind as I'm talking to you. Prophet Muhammad said something very profound. He said, if you loan somebody some money, let your left hand not know what the right hand gives. This is a very powerful statement. Here, what he says is, don't make people indebted to you. Don't make people lose their freedom. If you lend somebody to somebody, there's generally people lose their freedom. And he didn't want people to lose their freedom. Such was the importance placed on the value of freedom in Islam. So he said, don't mention that to anybody in public. It is between you and the individual. And not only that, let your right hand not know what your left hand gives, or vice versa. Such is the power of that message of freedom in Islam. That is another thing that Prophet Muhammad had said I wanted to share. And the floor is open for all of us to share for another 7 or 8 minutes to share whatever comes to your mind that is different, not regular.
Well, personally, I would speak about the fact that that Prophet Muhammad والسلام, once was asleep, and then he woke up smiling. And when he was asked why he was smiling, he responded that he had seen the members of his community on the seas as if they were on thrones, as if they were kings on the thrones. Sorry. And they used to believe that it has something to do with the conquest of Cyprus, Cyprus. And when I have made my researches regarding the presence of a prophet or a messenger on the American continent before 1492, and that I discovered that in fact the Arabs used to travel through the Atlantic Ocean before and after the advent of Islam, and that this is the reason why there were Islamic artifacts found on the American continent. I remembered that it was probably linked to the dream that he had made, because people used to believe that it has something to do with the Mediterranean Sea, but in fact it couldn't have been with this sea, because the Arabs were already present on the Mediterranean Sea, so it had to be something bigger. It had to be oceans. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spoken of his community as being like kings on the oceans, on the seas. He was speaking, in fact, about the oceans, and in fact about their presence in America, and probably also on the Australian continent, as they discovered Arabic coins coming certainly from Tanzania, or anyway from Black Africa, Black or Muslim Africa, long before the discovery of this Australian continent by the Europeans.
Yes. When you talk about oceans, it reminds me Cape of Good Hope. Prophet Muhammad, there is a verse in Marj al-Bahrain in Surah Rahman, where two oceans merge and they still remain separate. How did he know that?
Well, he couldn't have known.
Yeah.
You know, there are so many, and so sorry, someone called me at the same time, so it disturbed my. So I was saying that there were many scientific information that were highlighted by an Egyptian scientist whose name is Zaghloul al-Najjar, about the fire that is under the ocean, and that spoke about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he couldn't have known about. Because it was discovered during the 20th century, and I think it was submarines from England or the United States who discovered that under the ocean there were volcanoes, and so this scientific information was known to the Prophet ﷺ.
Amazing, amazing.
Yes,
we will do a full topic on science and Quran. There are so many scientific revelations in the Quran. We will have a conversation on that. I'm reaching out to two professors in India who write extensively on science and Quran. And of course, Ibrahim Said has written quite a lot. And we got to gather up at least 4 panelists to talk about science and Quran. And of course, you too.
That would be great.
If anyone has any thought that came as we were having a conversation, please share. Well,
you know, I translated a book written by Harun Yahya, whose title is "The Miracles of the Quran." Yes. I think I told you about it. And once I was with the publisher, and a French young man came to make a shahada because he had read The Miracles of the Quran, and it was fantastic because he had heard so many bad things about Islam that he wanted to understand, and in the end he was maybe 25 years old. He converted to Islam when he heard about it.
It is an amazing subject. It always makes me think, how did he know this? So many things are here. We will put them together. How did he know? And it is always amazing. And how did it didn't exist, many things at that time. They didn't have that knowledge. So we got another 7 minutes. You want to say a dua, Samira? And we'll conclude the program.
If you want, I can say something else about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Please do.
During Isra wal Mi'raj, so when he went to heaven, at that moment, the earth was put in his hand. So he had to see so many things. He had to see the American continent and the natives of America present on this unknown continent to the Europeans. In fact, they're religious as well as historical and archaeological evidences proving that this American continent had to be known, and that the natives of America had to know about Prophet Muhammad because he was a mercy to mankind. He was a mercy to everyone, including to the natives of America.
That's a very good point. I'm glad you shared. In fact, the Quran reinforces the idea that to every nation, every tribe, I have sent a messenger. I would use the word messenger to wrap up everybody, peacemaker, prophets, and everybody into that. Every society needs a peacemaker. And Muhammad was the final peacemaker to give the message to the entire mankind. Well, let's say the dua and conclude the program. You start the dua. I know in our programs, in the events we do, men and women have equal access, equal say. And traditionally women don't say the dua, but I want to start doing that.
اللهم ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. اللهم انصرنا على من ظلمنا يا رب العالمين، إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم آمين.
Ameen.
Ameen. Ameen.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank
We'll be
you.
back next week and we'll talk more about Prophet Muhammad's unique characteristics, our extended characteristics, as you mentioned, Samira, which was not never told. We just cut the story short. We need to go beyond that story. What is behind? What is the wisdom behind that story? Inshallah, we will do it next Thursday, same time. Thank you very much.
Inshallah.
Assalamu
Thank you.
alaikum.
وعليكم السلام
Assalamu
ورحمة
alaikum.
الله.
Assalamu
Wa alaikum
وعليكم
salam.
السلام ورحمة الله. سلام.